I never thought I'd be the one begging God for a bully's life. But there I was, covered in mud and snake venom, screaming into a pit while the boy who tormented me for 3 years slowly stopped moving below. Before I begin, if you like emotional human stories that stay with you, hit subscribe so you never miss another one. And comment which city you're watching this video from. My name is Keisha Matthews. I'm 17 years old, and I was a junior at Riverside High School in Columbus, Georgia, when everything changed. I lived with my grandmother in a cramped two-bedroom apartment on Victory Drive, right above the laundromat that smelled like burnt fabric and detergent every single morning. My parents died in a car accident on I-185 when I was 9. A semi-truck driver fell asleep at the wheel near the exit to Fort Benning, and just like that, I became an orphan. Grandma Lucille took me in without hesitation, but life was never easy after that. She worked double shifts at the Waffle House on Winton Road, and I worked weekends at the Dollar General just to help with rent. We weren't poor, but we weren't far from it either. The day it happened was a Thursday in late September, one of those sticky southern days where the heat clings to your skin like a second layer. School had been brutal. I'd failed my calculus test that morning, not because I didn't study, but because I couldn't concentrate. For the past 3 years, ever since freshman year, I'd been dealing with Mason Pritchard. Mason was everything I wasn't. White, wealthy, captain of the baseball team, with a father who owned half the commercial real estate in Muskogee County. He lived in one of those sprawling houses in Green Island Hills, the kind with a circular driveway and columns out front. His mother, Patricia Pritchard, was on the school board and every charity committee in Columbus. They were untouchable, and Mason knew it. He started targeting me freshman year for no reason I could ever figure out. At first it was small things, knocking my books out of my hands in the hallway, making comments about my thrift store clothes, imitating the way I spoke. But it escalated. Sophomore year, he poured chocolate milk on my head in the cafeteria while his friends filmed it. Junior year, he started the rumors that I was dirty, that my grandmother was a drug addict, that I'd slept with half the football team. None of it was true, but truth didn't matter at Riverside High. What mattered was who had power, and Mason had all of it. I reported him once, just once. I went to Principal Hendricks's office, sat in that stiff plastic chair across from his desk, and told him everything. Mr. Hendricks listened, nodded, took notes. Then he called in Mason and his parents. Mrs. Pritchard showed up in a cream-colored pantsuit and pearl earrings, her lawyer in tow. By the end of that meeting, somehow I was the problem. I was overly sensitive, looking for attention, making things difficult for a good student with a bright future. Mason got a verbal warning. I got a reputation as a snitch and a liar. After that, I stopped telling anyone. Not the teachers, not the counselors, not even Grandma Lucille. What was the point? The world had already decided who mattered, and it wasn't me. No, but I had people who kept me going. 3 of them, actually. First, there was Dante Williams. Dante was my best friend since 5th grade, back when we both got put in the gifted program at Diamond Elementary. He was tall, lanky, with glasses he constantly pushed up his nose, and a brain that could solve any problem you put in front of him. Dante was heading to MIT on a full scholarship. Everyone knew it. He was brilliant with computers, always coding something in the library during lunch. He didn't talk much, but when he did, people listened. Dante was the only person at school who treated me like I mattered. He'd walk me to class when Mason was nearby, share his lunch when I couldn't afford the cafeteria food, and stay up until midnight on FaceTime helping me with homework. His parents owned a small accounting firm on Broadway, and they'd invited me to dinner more times than I could count. His mother, Mrs. Williams, always made sure I left with Tupperware containers full of leftovers. Then there was Shanice Reed. Shanice was the opposite of Dante, loud, bold, and fearless. She was a senior, and she didn't care what anyone thought about her. She wore her natural hair in huge, gorgeous coils, painted her nails bright colors that violated dress code, and called out teachers when they said something ignorant. Shanice worked at the Chick-fil-A on Veterans Parkway, and she'd sneak me free chicken sandwiches whenever I stopped by after my shift at Dollar General. She'd been through her own hell. Her father was in prison upstate, and her mother struggled with addiction. But Shanice carried herself like royalty. She told me once, Keisha, the world's gonna try to break you down every single day. Your job is to wake up and choose yourself anyway. I tried to live by that. And then there was Mr. Jerome Hastings, my English teacher. Mr. Hastings was a black man in his mid-50s who'd taught at Riverside for 27 years. He wore the same rotation of sweater vests and always had a cup of coffee in his hand. He was the only teacher who seemed to actually see me. When I turned in essays, he'd write long, thoughtful notes in the margins. Not just about grammar, but about my ideas, my voice. He encouraged me to apply for college scholarships, helped me draft my personal statement, told me I had a gift for writing. Mr. Hastings had a son who graduated from Morehouse College and worked as a journalist in Atlanta, and he talked about him with so much pride it made my chest ache. I wanted someone to be that proud of me someday. These three people were my anchors, but anchors can only do so much when the current's too strong. That Thursday started like any other terrible day. I woke up at 5:30 a.m. to the sound of Grandma Lucille's alarm and the smell of instant coffee. She was already dressed in her Waffle House uniform, her gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. She kissed my forehead before she left, slipped a $10 bill into my backpack, and told me to eat something real for lunch. I nodded, even though I knew I'd probably pocket the money to save for the electric bill. At school, Mason started in immediately. I was at my locker between first and second period when he appeared with his usual entourage: Brock Henderson, Tyler Moss, and Chloe Danvers. Brock was Mason's best friend, a linebacker with a neck like a tree trunk and a mean streak twice as wide. Tyler was quieter, always filming everything on his phone like he was documenting evidence for some future trial. Chloe was the worst, though. She was Mason's on-again, off-again girlfriend, a cheerleader with bleached blonde hair and a smile that could cut glass. She hated me for reasons I didn't fully understand, but I suspected it had something to do with the fact that Mason paid me attention, even if that attention was cruel. "Hey, Keisha," Mason said, leaning against the locker next to mine. "Nice shirt. Is that from the Salvation Army, or did you just pull it out of a dumpster?" Brock and Tyler laughed. Chloe smirked. I didn't respond. I'd learned that responding only made it worse. "What's the matter?" Mason continued, stepping closer. "Cat got your tongue? Or are you just too stupid to come up with a comeback?" My hands tightened around my calculus textbook. I focused on breathing, on keeping my face blank. Don't react. Don't give him what he wants. "Mason, leave her alone," someone said. I looked up. It was Dante, standing a few feet away with his backpack slung over one shoulder. His voice was quiet but firm. Mason turned, his expression shifting from amusement to annoyance. "Oh, look, it's the Nerd Squad. What are you gonna do, Dante? Code me to death?" "I'm just saying, don't you have anything better to do?" Dante replied, his jaw tight. For a moment, I thought Mason might actually back down, but then Chloe whispered something in his ear, and his expression darkened. "You know what, Dante?" Mason said, stepping toward him. "You should be careful. Defending trash like her might ruin that fancy MIT reputation you're trying to build." Dante's hands clenched into fists, but he didn't move. Mason laughed, clapped him on the shoulder like they were old friends, and walked away with his crew trailing behind. I exhaled slowly. "Thanks," I muttered to Dante. "Don't mention it," he said, though his eyes were still locked on Mason's retreating back. Third period was English with Mr. Hastings, the only class I actually looked forward to. We were reading Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston, and Mr. Hastings had a way of teaching it that made the words feel alive. He talked about Janie's journey towards self-discovery, about how she refused to let the world shrink her down, and I felt every word in my bones. After class, Mr. Hastings called me over to his desk. "Keisha, I wanted to talk to you about your essay," he said, holding up the paper I'd turned in the week before. There was a big red A at the top, along with several paragraphs of handwritten notes. "This is excellent work," he continued. "Your analysis of Janie's relationship with tea cake is nuanced and insightful. You have a real talent for this." I felt my cheeks warm. "Thank you, Mr. Hastings." "I mean it," he said, leaning forward. "Have you thought more about what I said? About applying to schools with strong English or journalism programs?" I hesitated. The truth was, I'd thought about it constantly. I dreamed about leaving Columbus, about going somewhere I could start over, somewhere people didn't know me as the poor girl with the dead parents and the bully problem. But dreams cost money, and I didn't have any. I don't know if I can afford it, I admitted. Mr. Hastings nodded slowly. I understand, but there are scholarships, Keisha. Full rides. You're exactly the kind of student they're looking for. Will you at least let me help you apply? I looked down at the essay in his hands, at the notes he'd written in the margins, and felt something crack open inside my chest. Okay, I said quietly. I'll try. He smiled. Good. That's all I'm asking. Lunch was when everything started to unravel. I was sitting with Dante and Shanice at our usual table in the corner of the cafeteria, near the vending machines that never worked. Shanice was telling us about some drama at Chick-fil-A, a customer who'd thrown a milkshake at her coworker because the order was wrong, and Dante was shaking his head in disbelief. Then Mason walked by. He didn't say anything at first. He just looked at me, that same smug smile on his face, and kept walking. But as he passed, he accidentally bumped into the table, hard enough that my milk carton tipped over and spilled across my lap. I jumped up, milk dripping down my jeans. Oops, Mason said, not even bothering to look back. Shanice stood up immediately. You did that on purpose, you entitled piece of... Shanice, don't, I said, grabbing her arm. The last thing I needed was for her to get suspended defending me. But it was too late. Mason had stopped and turned around. He walked back over, Brock and Tyler flanking him like bodyguards. You got something to say? Mason asked Shanice, his voice low and dangerous. Yeah, I do, Shanice shot back. I'm saying you're a coward who picks on people because your daddy's money can't buy you a personality. The cafeteria went quiet. Everyone was watching now. Mason's face flushed red. For a second, I thought he might actually hit her. But then he smiled, a slow, cruel smile that made my stomach drop. You know what? He said, looking at me instead of Shanice. I'm done playing nice. After school today, Keisha, behind the gym, if you don't show up, I'm going to make sure everyone at this school knows what a pathetic coward you are. Why would she meet you anywhere? Dante demanded, standing up beside me. Mason ignored him. He kept his eyes on me. Be there, or else. Then he walked away. I didn't want to go. Every instinct I had screamed at me to run, to hide, to tell someone. But I knew Mason. If I didn't show up, he'd escalate. He'd make my life even more unbearable than it already was. And part of me, some small, stupid part, thought maybe that if I faced him once, if I stood up to him, he'd finally leave me alone. So after the final bell rang, I walked to the back of the gym. The area behind the gym was a wasteland, cracked pavement, overgrown weeds, and a chain-link fence separating school property from the woods beyond. It was where people went to skip class or smoke cigarettes without getting caught. I'd never been back there before. Mason was waiting for me. So were Brock, Tyler, and Chloe. Well, Mason said, clapping slowly. She actually showed up. I'm impressed. I crossed my arms over my chest, trying to look braver than I felt. What do you want, Mason? He stepped closer. What do I want? I want you to understand your place, Keisha. You don't belong here. You're nothing. You're trash. And I'm tired of looking at you. Then stop looking, I said, my voice shaking. He laughed. You've got a mouth on you today. Let's see if you're still talking after this. Before I could react, Brock grabbed my arm. I tried to pull away, but he was too strong. Tyler moved to my other side, and together they started dragging me toward the woods. Let me go, I screamed, thrashing against them. What are you doing? Mason walked ahead, holding back branches as they pulled me deeper into the trees. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might explode. I looked back and saw Chloe standing at the edge of the woods, her phone out, filming. Enoch. We stopped at a small clearing. In the center was a sinkhole, maybe 10 feet wide and 15 feet deep, its sides slick with mud. At the bottom, I could see something moving. Snakes. There's an old snake den down there, Mason said casually, as if he were giving a tour. Cottonmouths mostly. Dangerous little things. My dad used to bring me out here when I was a kid, told me to stay away. But you know what? I think it's the perfect place for the trash like you. Mason, please, I begged, tears streaming down my face. Please don't do this. He looked at me with cold, empty eyes. You should have known your place. And then Brock and Tyler shoved me toward the pit. I fell. End of part one. Part two. The fall felt like it lasted forever and no time at all. My body hit the mud with a sick, wet thud that knocked the air from my lungs. Pain exploded through my left shoulder and ribs. For a few seconds I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. All I could do was lie there in the cold, slick mud, staring up at the circle of gray sky above me. Then I heard the hissing. My head snapped to the side. Cottonmouths. At least 4 of them, maybe more, coiled in the shadows near the far wall of the pit. Their mouths were open, white and threatening, and their bodies were thick as my forearm. I'd grown up in Georgia. I knew what cottonmouth venom could do. Tissue death, kidney failure. If you didn't get to a hospital fast, you could die. I tried to scream, but all that came out was a choked sob. Above me, I heard laughter. Mason's face appeared over the edge of the pit, backlit by the dying afternoon sun. Have fun down there, Keisha, he called. Maybe if you're lucky, someone will find your body before the snakes finish with you. More laughter, then footsteps, fading into the distance. They left me there. I was alone. Panic set in immediately. I scrambled backward, pressing myself against the muddy wall of the pit, as far from the snakes as I could get. My shoulders screamed in protest, but I didn't care. I had to get out. I had to, but the walls were too steep, too slick. Every time I tried to climb, my hands slipped, and I slid back down into the mud. My fingernails tore. Blood mixed with the dirt. I was trapped. The snakes moved closer. Help! I screamed, my voice raw and desperate. Somebody help me! But the woods were silent, except for the wind and the hissing. I don't know how long I stayed like that, pressed against the wall, sobbing, watching the snakes inch closer. It could have been minutes. It could have been an hour. Time stopped meaning anything. All I knew was that I was going to die here, in this pit, because Mason Pritchard thought I was trash. And then I heard it, a shout. Keisha? I looked up, barely daring to hope. A face appeared over the edge of the pit. Not Mason, not his friends. It was Dante. Oh my God, Keisha! His voice cracked with panic. Are you okay? What happened? Dante, I sobbed. Get me out, please, there are snakes. I see them, he said quickly. Stay still, don't move. I'm calling 911 right now. He disappeared from view, and I heard him talking rapidly into his phone, giving the dispatcher directions. Then he was back, looking down at me with terrified eyes. They're coming, he said. Fire department, ambulance, police. They're all coming. Just hold on, Keisha. Please hold on. How did you find me? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Shanice, he said. She saw you go behind the gym after school and got worried. She called me when you didn't come back. We've been looking everywhere. His voice broke. I'm so sorry. I should have come with you. I should have. It's not your fault, I said, even though every part of me was shaking. It's Mason. He did this. Him and Brock and Tyler. They threw me in here. Dante's expression went dark. I'm gonna kill him. No, I said. Just help me get out. He nodded. I'm not leaving you. I promise. The next few minutes were a blur. Dante kept talking to me, trying to keep me calm, telling me stories about stupid things that happened in his computer science class. Anything to keep my mind off the snakes. I could hear sirens in the distance, getting louder. But then something happened that changed everything. There was a crashing sound in the woods, and suddenly Mason appeared at the edge of the pit. He was alone this time, his face pale and panicked. Dante, he said, his voice shaking. What are you? Get away from here, Dante growled. Now! I didn't mean for... Mason stammered, looking down at me. I was just trying to scare her. I didn't think... You threw her into a snake pit, Dante yelled. What did you think was going to happen? Mason took a step back, and that's when it happened. The edge of the pit crumbled beneath his feet. He fell. I watched in horror as Mason tumbled down the muddy slope, arms flailing, and landed hard at the bottom, right in the middle of the snakes. They struck immediately. Mason screamed, a high, awful sound that I'll never forget as long as I live. He tried to scramble away, but the snakes were fast. I saw at least 3 bites, maybe more, on his legs and arms. He thrashed in the mud, crying, begging, his earlier cruelty completely gone. "Help me," he sobbed, looking up at Dante. "Please, help me." Dante stood frozen at the edge, staring down. And for a terrible moment, I saw him hesitate. This was Mason Pritchard, the boy who'd made my life hell for 3 years, the boy who'd just tried to kill me. Who would blame Dante if he just walked away? But then something shifted in Dante's expression. "I'm coming down," he shouted. "Dante, no!" I screamed. "The snakes!" But he was already moving. He grabbed a thick branch from the ground and used it to lower himself into the pit, sliding down the slope in a controlled fall. The moment he hit the bottom, he started swinging the branch at the snakes, driving them back. "Get behind me!" he yelled at both of us. Mason crawled toward Dante, leaving a trail of blood in the mud. His face was already swelling, his breathing labored. The venom was working fast. Dante kept the snakes at bay, positioning himself between us and them, that branch moving in wide, desperate arcs. I pressed myself against the wall, my heart hammering, watching this boy, this brilliant, gentle boy who was supposed to go to MIT, risk his life for the person who tormented his best friend. "Why?" I heard Mason gasp, looking at Dante through tears. "Why are you helping me?" Dante didn't look at him. His eyes stayed on the snakes. "Because somebody has to be better than you." The fire department arrived maybe 3 minutes later, but it felt like a lifetime. They lowered a ladder and a rope harness, and paramedics in protective gear climbed down. They got Mason out first. He was in bad shape, barely conscious, his skin mottled and discolored. Then me. Then Dante. The moment I was on solid ground, my legs gave out. Shanice was there crying, wrapping me in her arms while paramedics checked my vitals. I had minor cuts and bruises, possible cracked ribs, but no snake bites. I was lucky. Dante sat nearby, covered in mud, his hands shaking as a paramedic examined him. He'd been bitten once, on his left calf. They started treating him immediately, hooking up an IV, preparing to transport him to the hospital. "You're an idiot," I told him, my voice cracking. "A brave, stupid idiot." He looked at me and smiled weakly. "Yeah, well, you're worth it." Mason was loaded into an ambulance, sirens already wailing. His parents showed up just as they were pulling away. Patricia Pritchard in her expensive car, her face a mask of shock and fury. She didn't even look at me. She just followed the ambulance to the hospital. The police took statements from everyone. Dante told them everything. How Mason had been bullying me for years. How he'd lured me behind the gym. How Brock and Tyler had helped throw me into the pit. Shanice confirmed she'd seen me go back there. And then someone mentioned Chloe's phone. They found her an hour later at her house, trying to delete the video. But it was too late. She'd already posted it to her private Instagram story, and someone had screen recorded it before she could take it down. The video showed everything. Mason and his friends dragging me into the woods. The shove, my screams as I fell, their laughter as they walked away. It went viral overnight. The next few days were chaos. Mason survived, but barely. He was in the ICU for 3 days, undergoing multiple surgeries, receiving antivenom treatments. The bites had caused severe tissue damage, and doctors said he might have permanent nerve damage in his left leg. Brock and Tyler were arrested and charged with aggravated assault. Chloe was charged with conspiracy and failing to render aid. Their parents hired expensive lawyers, but the video made their defense almost impossible. My story spread beyond Columbus. News trucks parked outside Riverside High. Reporters wanted interviews. Social media exploded with debates about bullying, race, privilege, and justice. The hashtag #HashJustice for Acacia trended for almost a week. Patricia Pritchard held a press conference, crying, calling her son a good boy who'd made a mistake. She tried to spin it as a prank gone wrong, but the video didn't lie, and neither did the years of documented complaints I'd made that the school had ignored. Principal Hendricks was fired. The school board launched an investigation into how Riverside High had handled bullying complaints. Lawsuits were filed by my grandmother against the Pritchards, by other families whose children had been bullied and ignored. Dante recovered fully from his bite. The doctors said he'd gotten treatment fast enough that there'd be no lasting damage. MIT sent him a personal letter commending his bravery and reaffirming his scholarship. He became a local hero, the kid who'd risked his life to save someone, even someone who didn't deserve it. But Dante didn't want to talk about any of it. He just wanted things to go back to normal. 2 weeks after the incident, I visited Mason in the hospital. I didn't tell anyone I was going. Not Grandma Lucille, not Dante, not Shanice. I just took the bus to Piedmont Columbus Regional Medical Center on St. Francis Avenue and asked for his room number. The nurse hesitated when I gave my name. "Are you sure?" she asked gently. I nodded. Mason was alone when I walked in. His left leg was heavily bandaged and elevated. His face was still pale, and there were dark circles under his eyes. He looked smaller somehow, like the pit had swallowed some essential part of him. When he saw me, he went rigid. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice hoarse. I stood in the doorway, unsure. "I don't know," I admitted. I needed to see you." He looked away. "If you came here to gloat—" "I'm not here to gloat," I interrupted. "I'm here because I keep thinking about what Dante said, about being better." Mason was quiet for a long time. Then, so quietly I almost didn't hear it, he said, "I'm sorry." I blinked. "What?" "I'm sorry," he repeated, louder this time. He still wouldn't look at me. "For everything, for all of it. You didn't deserve any of what I did to you. I was a monster." Tears welled up in my eyes. I didn't know what I'd expected, but it wasn't this. "Why?" I asked, the question I'd carried for 3 years finally spilling out. "Why did you hate me so much?" He finally looked at me then, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Shame. "I didn't hate you," he said. "I hated myself. My dad, he's always pushing me to be perfect, to be tough, to never show weakness. And you were everything I couldn't be. You were strong, even when everyone was against you. You kept going. I envied that, and I hated that I envied it. So I tried to break you instead." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to scream at him, to tell him that his pain didn't excuse what he'd done. But another part, the part that had spent 3 years learning how to survive, understood that hurt people hurt people. "I don't forgive you," I said finally. "I don't know if I ever will. But I don't want to carry this hate anymore. It's too heavy." He nodded. "I understand." I turned to leave but then stopped. "Mason?" "Yeah? Get help. Real help. Because if you don't deal with whatever's broken inside you, you're just gonna hurt someone else." "I will," he said. "I promise." I left the hospital feeling lighter than I had in years. The legal cases dragged on for months. Mason, Brock, Tyler, and Chloe all pled guilty to various charges. Mason was sentenced to 2 years in a juvenile detention facility, followed by probation and mandatory counseling. Brock and Tyler got similar sentences. Chloe got probation and community service. The Pritchard family's reputation in Columbus was destroyed. Patricia Pritchard resigned from the school board. Their real estate business took a massive hit as clients pulled their contracts. They eventually moved away. To Atlanta, I heard, trying to start over somewhere their name wasn't synonymous with cruelty. My grandmother's lawsuit settled out of court for an amount that meant I could go to college without worrying about money. Mr. Hastings helped me apply to 10 different schools, and I got into 8 of them. I chose Spelman College in Atlanta, where I'm majoring in journalism. I want to tell stories like mine, stories about people who survive, who fight back, who refuse to let the world shrink them down. Dante's at MIT now, doing exactly what everyone knew he would, changing the world one line of code at a time. We still talk every week, and he visits during breaks. He's dating someone, a computer science major from California, and he seems happy. Shanice graduated and got a scholarship to Georgia State University. She's studying social work, planning to help kids who've been through what she and I went through. She still works at Chick-fil-A part-time, and she still sneaks me free chicken sandwiches when I come home. Mr. Hastings retired last year. He sends me emails sometimes, asking about my classes, my writing, my life. He tells me he's proud of me. And every time I read those words, something in my chest grows warmer. It's been 3 years since the pit. Sometimes I still have nightmares. I'm falling, and I can't stop, and the snakes are waiting. But I wake up in my dorm room at Spelman, and I remember I survived. Not just the pit, but everything that came before it. All those years of cruelty, of being told I was nothing, of being pushed down again and again. I survived all of it. And I'm not the same girl I was. I'm stronger now. Not because of what happened to me, but because of what I chose to do with it. I chose not to let hate consume me. I chose to tell my story. I chose to keep going. Last month, I got an email from Mason. He's out of juvenile detention now, living with his mother in Atlanta, working at a grocery store and taking online classes. He's been in therapy for 2 years. He wanted to know if I'd be willing to speak at an anti-bullying event his therapist is organizing. Not to forgive him publicly, but to share my experience, to help other kids who are going through what I went through. I said yes. Not for him, for me, and for every kid who's ever been pushed down and told that they don't matter. Because they do. We all do. I learned something in that pit, covered in mud and surrounded by snakes. The world will try to bury you. It will push you down, tell you you're worthless, leave you for dead. But you don't have to stay buried. You can climb out, you can survive. And when you do, you can choose what kind of person you want to be. The kind who pushes others down, or the kind who reaches back to help them up. I know which one I choose. And every single day, I choose it again.